In 1974, the voting age was dropped from 21 to 18. This week, New Zealand's Supreme Court made an unusual declaration that New Zealand's voting age minimum 18 may be discriminatory, meaning Parliament must discuss whether it should stay or be lowered to 16. The Prime Minister only recently returned from APEC in Thailand. We asked her earlier this morning about lowering the voting age and whether or not there were any wins for Māori at the Asia Pacific Economic Forum.
When I spoke at one of the business forums, I talked about the need for inclusive growth, and that needs to include our Māori economy, women, our small and medium-sized enterprises. So focus of talks and focus of our emphasis on the trade agenda as well.
Prime Minister, there's a warning from the International Monetary Fund that most countries would either be in a recession or feel as if they were, due in large part to the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. Any projections on how that's going to add to our own cost of living crisis?
Well, of course, what the IMF is sharing are global projections. But what we know, of course, is that we're an economy that is so dependent on trade. And that has actually, in many ways, helped us get through COVID, because we've had very, very strong export growth for our primary sector. But actually, it means that then when other economies struggle or slow, that has an impact on us.
Now, one of the interesting points this week, the Supreme Court declared the voting age of 18 is inconsistent with the Bill of Rights Act. Do you feel that 16 years old or 16-year-olds have the maturity and possible understanding to be voting for our government?
Yeah, so you're right. The Supreme Court made this decision, but we can't change electoral law in New Zealand without 75% of Parliament voting in favour. So our view was this shouldn't just be up to government, because actually it requires everyone in Parliament to support a change. So let's just put a bill to Parliament so that other MPs can have their say as well. So that's how we're going to address it. When it comes to the issue of whether or not you should vote in favour or opposed, we're going to hold a free vote so that individual MPs in our party can have their say. And so we don't have a party, we're not taking a party position, we're letting everyone make their own judgment. But I think what's interesting in New Zealand, we have lots of different legal ages, but 16 is the age that you can leave school, it's the age that you can go and live on your own, it's obviously the age of consent, firearms licensing, so a lot of things do sit around the age of 16. There's also some things that sit around 17 and 18, and I think that's why it will be a debate.
Well, I was wondering then, could this precipitate other changes, including maybe seeing a 16-year-old being tried as an adult if they commit a crime, or possibly lowering the drinking age to 16?
A good question. And look, on all of these, actually there are different issues at play. And so when it comes to how young people are treated in our justice system, we actually have lots of different age ranges. So depending on the severity of the crime, a child can actually already go into our court system depending on the severity of the crime. So murder or manslaughter can be tried in the courts for a much younger age. If it's something that attracts a penalty of 14 years or more, you can go into the youth court when you're under 16. So there's no hard and fast in the New Zealand system on age, and I think that's why it causes quite a bit of debate.
Okay. Prime Minister, your Defence Minister, Peeni Henare, recently visited war-torn Ukraine and Poland and says New Zealand could help to fund more equipment for Ukraine, possibly weapons. What's the thinking here? And if we can do weapons, why not soldiers?
So, a good question. We actually have put in funding, we have put in support via the UK previously, because of course, when it comes to support for Ukraine, it's about how do we provide support quickly. And the reason that we're doing it in the first place is because we hold very strongly to the idea that there are international laws and rules of territory that we believe should be upheld. Russia has illegally invaded Ukraine. And so the simple question for us is, what would we want to happen if that happened to us? Well, we would want the international community to speak out, and we would want support. And so that's the approach that we take in supporting Ukraine. And the reason we don't put people on the ground is because that means that you are committing New Zealand to the war itself. You're almost waging war in return. And so there is a distinction there between support and being involved in direct engagement.
Okay. Time's up for us, but I just want to get your thoughts on the BlackFinn's bonus. It was announced. What are your thoughts? Too much, not enough, just right?
I will always argue for equality for our BlackFinns. In my view, there should be no reason why our elite athletes are treated differently based on their gender. They're elite athletes, they are world champions, and that equality should be from everything to, the merchandise that's available. We should think about the commercial sponsorship they attract, the audience participation, the media coverage, and pay. It should be at every level.
I agree. Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, thank you so much for joining us today. Kia hau maru, stay safe.
Ka kite.